It was a time when the galaxy was filled with countless species, each more powerful and intelligent than the last. The universe was a vast, dangerous place where the strong preyed on the weak and the mighty ruled with an iron fist. But there was one species that no one could ignore: the humans. Now, I know what you're thinking. You've probably heard the stories, the rumors, the legends. You've been told how humans were nothing more than a small, primitive species from a backwater planet stuck on the edge of the universe. They were weak. But trust me when I tell you, do not make the mistake of underestimating them. It all started when the first alien species made contact with humanity. At first, it was a simple exchange, an interaction between two species who had never met before. The aliens, assuming their superior technology and vast knowledge of the cosmos made them invincible, believed they had nothing to fear from the humans. What they didn't realize was that humans have a certain tendency when pushed too far. The first encounter was peaceful enough. The aliens arrived in their sleek, imposing ships, hovering silently above Earth's atmosphere, their technology far beyond anything humans could even dream of. They sent their representatives down to speak with the leaders of Earth, and to the casual observer, everything seemed to be going according to plan. But there was something in the air, something the aliens couldn't sense but the humans could. A spark, a quiet intensity, a feeling that this was not going to be as easy as they thought. The aliens spoke in their smooth, calming tones, explaining their purpose, their history, and their grand vision for the future. They extended an offer of alliance, promising humanity all sorts of technological marvels in exchange for cooperation. The humans, cautious but curious, listened. They didn't know what to make of it, but they knew one thing: something didn't sit right. There was an uneasy silence, a stillness that no one could explain. The humans had heard rumors. They had heard stories from their own history of powerful beings who once dominated the earth, only to be toppled by something unpredictable, something wild, something human. As the conversation unfolded, the aliens grew increasingly confident. They assumed that the humans, with their primitive technology and limited understanding of the galaxy, would fall in line with their demands. They thought they could control them, bend them to their will. They never considered the possibility that humanity might respond differently. The first sign of trouble came when the aliens asked for something simple, something that should have been harmless. They wanted to test a piece of their advanced technology on a human subject, just to see how their bodies reacted to it. The humans, without hesitation, refused. It was a small thing, but it was the first sign of defiance, and it made the aliens uneasy. They brushed it off. Surely, this was just a misunderstanding, right? But as the days went on, the humans grew less and less compliant. They started to question the aliens' true motives, to wonder what they were really after. Why were they offering technology and knowledge? What did they want in return? And most importantly, why was there an air of superiority in everything they said? The aliens, growing more frustrated with the humans' reluctance to bend, decided to assert their dominance. They showed off their technology, their weapons, their power, as though to remind the humans who was in charge. It didn't take long for the humans to notice. They were calculating, observing. They might have been small, but they were clever. And when it came time to make their move, the humans didn't need advanced weaponry or overwhelming numbers. They didn't need superior ships or unmatched firepower. They simply needed to do what they did best: think. Humanity quickly realized that they were being played. The aliens might have had better technology, but they lacked something far more dangerous, something the humans had in abundance. The humans had resolve. They had cunning. And above all, they had something the aliens never counted on, a will to survive. The first battle was nothing short of chaos. The humans, using their resourcefulness, turned the tables in ways the aliens couldn't have predicted. They didn't fight like the other species the aliens had encountered. They fought with everything strategy, passion, and a ferocity that no one had ever witnessed before. It was the kind of fight that left the aliens speechless, their sophisticated weaponry unable to match the unpredictable nature of human ingenuity. For the first time, the aliens began to realize the gravity of their mistake. They had underestimated humanity. They had assumed the humans were weak, easily manipulated, easily controlled. But now they were seeing something different, something terrifying. Humanity wasn't just surviving, they were adapting. They were fighting back with an intensity the aliens couldn't understand. But the humans weren't just defending themselves. They were sending a message. They weren't going to let themselves be walked over. They weren't going to let anyone take what was rightfully theirs. The humans, despite their small numbers and primitive technology, proved that they could outsmart and outlast the most powerful species in the galaxy. And that's when the true danger began. The aliens, now desperate to crush this resistance, did what they thought was the only way to end its escalation. They unleashed their most devastating weapon, a force so powerful it could wipe out entire cities with a single blast. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't possibly understand, was that the humans would never stop. When pushed to the edge, when there was nowhere else to go, humans had an uncanny ability to push back harder than anyone thought possible. The moment the weapon was launched, the humans made their move. They struck back with a plan so daring, so unexpected, that it left the aliens scrambling for answers. The tables were about to turn, but just when it seemed like the humans might pull off the impossible, something unexpected happened, something that would change everything. The humans were no longer alone. As the aliens tried to assess their next move, an unknown force appeared on the horizon. A force bigger, stronger, and more mysterious than anything they had ever encountered before. It wasn't clear who they were or what they wanted, but one thing was for sure: the fate of the galaxy was about to shift in ways no one could have anticipated. What did the humans just unleash? And could they survive the consequences of their defiance? Only time will tell. But one thing is certain: never, ever provoke the humans. The unknown force that had appeared on the horizon wasn't just another alien race or some new fleet of ships. No, it was something far more mysterious, something that struck fear into the hearts of even the most powerful beings in the galaxy. As the human leaders gathered around their control centers, staring at the blinking radar screens, there was a silence that weighed down the room. No one knew what to make of it. The fleet of sleek black ships had emerged without warning, moving with an eerie precision and speed. It was almost as if they had been waiting for the perfect moment to arrive. The humans had barely begun to process this new threat when their communication systems buzzed to life with a cryptic message transmitted in a language no one had ever heard before. The words were unintelligible at first, their meaning hidden beneath layers of complexity. But as the transmission continued, it became clear that whoever or whatever was behind these ships had knowledge of the galaxy far beyond anything the humans had ever encountered. The aliens had already known about Earth and its people, of course, but this new force, this was different. It wasn't just that they were advanced. It was that they seemed to know exactly how to manipulate the situation, how to destabilize everything the humans had fought for. Back on Earth, the pressure was mounting. The humans had already fought back against one alien species, proving that they would not bow to anyone. But now, with the appearance of this mysterious force, they were faced with a far greater threat. The leaders of Earth were scrambling to figure out what this meant for them. Were the newcomers here to help, or were they another layer of danger about to crush the fragile resistance humanity had built? As they sifted through information and tried to make sense of the situation, the human leaders realized something unsettling. Their own understanding of the universe was limited. They thought they had faced the worst of it with the alien species that had tried to dominate them. But now, a new player had entered the game, one whose true intentions were as elusive as the stars themselves. They had no idea whether these mysterious beings were enemies or allies. All they knew was that the fate of humanity hung in the balance, and they had no choice but to prepare for whatever was coming next. Among the humans, there were a few who were more determined than others to uncover the truth. One of them was an intelligence officer, known for his sharp mind and unwavering determination. He had been tracking the alien fleet's movements, noting their patterns, and studying every scrap of information they could find. There was something off about the ships, something that didn't quite add up. The officer had a theory. He believed that these new arrivals weren't just another species looking to conquer. No, he thought they were something much more dangerous. They were watching. The alien fleet had come not to fight, but to observe the humans' every move, waiting for something, an event, a sign, or maybe even an opportunity. The officer didn't know what it was, but he couldn't shake the feeling that humanity was being tested. And if they failed the test, the consequences would be catastrophic. Meanwhile, the alien forces that had previously attempted to dominate Earth were still reeling from their defeat. They had underestimated humanity, and now they were scrambling to recover their standing in the galaxy. Their once confident leaders were growing more nervous, more desperate. After all, a species that had survived so much against their might was no small threat. The humans had proven that their survival instinct, their adaptability, and their cunning were forces that could not be easily controlled. The aliens had suffered losses in their previous encounters with humanity, but this new threat, this mysterious fleet, could be the answer to their problems. With their technology and power, perhaps they could broker an alliance with the newcomers. Perhaps this new force could deal with the humans once and for all. But as they attempted to reach out, something unexpected happened. The mysterious fleet didn't respond in the way the aliens expected. Instead of a direct confrontation, the new fleet remained silent, as if waiting for the humans to make the first move. On Earth, the tension was palpable. The human military forces had begun mobilizing, preparing for the worst. Cities were on high alert. Military operations were being planned in secret, and the leaders of Earth held countless meetings, trying to devise a strategy. They knew they had one chance to get this right. Any misstep could mean their total destruction. Despite their best efforts, though, the humans could never fully grasp the mystery of the newcomers. Even with all their advanced technology and research, they could not figure out the true purpose of these strange ships. The alien fleets had been predictable, but this new force was anything but. It was almost as if they were playing a game where humanity was the key piece. The officers, generals, and scientists all shared the same fear. These mysterious beings were watching them closely, studying their every move. They were analyzing how humanity would respond to the pressure, to the unknown, and to the looming threat that seemed to hang over them. The officer, who had been relentlessly tracking the aliens' movements, began to feel the weight of his growing theory. The more he studied, the more he believed that the mysterious fleet wasn't here to invade or conquer. They weren't interested in typical galactic domination. No, he believed they were here for something else, something deeper, something tied to humanity's very core. What if the humans were part of a larger plan, a much greater conflict that stretched across the stars? What if the humans weren't the ones under threat at all, but rather, they were the ones being tested for something far greater? This theory haunted him, but it also filled him with a strange sense of dread. If he was right, humanity might be facing something far beyond their comprehension. It wasn't just about survival anymore. It was about understanding their place in the grand scheme of the universe. As the days wore on, the situation only grew more intense. The mysterious ships didn't move, didn't advance. They simply watched. And as time passed, the humans began to grow paranoid. Were they really being observed? Or were they simply imagining it? Was this some kind of cosmic game? Or were they at the mercy of forces beyond their control? The clock was ticking. Something had to give. But as the humans braced for an answer, they realized they weren't the only ones caught in the crossfire. The alien species that had once sought to dominate Earth were once again preparing to strike. But this time, they were not just fighting humanity. They were fighting something far more powerful than they had ever imagined. And just as the first signs of conflict began to rise, the officer received a transmission. A single, cryptic message. It wasn't from the mysterious fleet. It wasn't from the aliens. It was from somewhere else. Somewhere far, far beyond. And it left him with one chilling question. Are you ready for the truth? The transmission echoed through the officer's mind, the words reverberating like a distant drumbeat in the back of his skull. Are you ready for the truth? His fingers hovered over the console, the glowing buttons casting an eerie light across his face. The words were simple, but their meaning, that was something else entirely. Who had sent it? And why now, at this pivotal moment, when everything was on the brink of collapse? He sat in stunned silence, unable to make sense of it. The entire world was on edge. The humans had barely recovered from the alien invasion attempts, and now they faced an unknown enemy far more elusive than anything they had encountered before. Was this message a clue, a warning, or something far more sinister? Around him, the military leaders and scientists scrambled to interpret any data they could gather. The mysterious fleet still loomed in the skies, its ships seemingly watching every move the humans made. They had not moved an inch since arriving, yet their presence was undeniable, casting an ominous shadow over Earth. It was almost as if the universe itself had frozen, holding its breath, waiting for the humans to make their next move. The officer knew time was running out. Every second that passed made the situation feel more like a ticking bomb. The silence from the unknown fleet was deafening, and every attempt to communicate with them had been met with cold indifference. They didn't respond to threats, to diplomacy, or to any form of human understanding. They simply observed. And yet, he couldn't shake the feeling that this was all part of something much bigger than they could comprehend. The mysterious fleet was not here to simply annihilate humanity. No, this was something else. Something that would force the humans to confront their deepest fears, their wildest possibilities, and perhaps even their very nature as a species. The officer couldn't help but replay the cryptic message over and over in his mind. Are you ready for the truth? He could feel the weight of it. Something was coming, something that humanity wasn't prepared for. Whatever this truth was, it was out there and it was about to be unleashed. As the days passed, a sense of dread settled over Earth. Cities were under martial law, soldiers patrolled the streets, and the global communication systems buzzed with messages of caution and readiness. Humanity was on the precipice of a decision, but they didn't know what to choose. The clock was ticking, and the next step they took could very well lead to their destruction, or perhaps their salvation. The officer wasn't the only one who felt the pressure. In a high-level meeting in one of Earth's most secure bunkers, the world's leaders were coming to terms with the gravity of the situation. They knew they were on the verge of something monumental. Every part of their instincts told them that they had to act now. But what could they do? How could they move forward when they didn't even know the true nature of the threat that lay before them? One thing was certain: humanity had to be ready. For what, though? No one knew. In the quietest moments, when the room fell into deep contemplation, one of the military leaders spoke up, his voice grim. What if the truth is that they've been watching us all along? Watching our history unfold, watching our wars, our victories, our defeats. What if the truth is that they're testing us, waiting to see if we're worthy of something beyond what we can understand? The room fell silent. The thought hung in the air, thick and heavy. Could it be possible? The officer felt a chill run down his spine. If this was true, it meant the mysterious fleet wasn't just interested in humanity for its resources or technology. It meant that the humans were being evaluated, placed under the microscope of some cosmic force, some higher power that had been observing their every move from afar. The stakes had just been raised. The officer's mind raced. How would humanity be tested? What could they do to prove themselves worthy of whatever fate was approaching them? He didn't have the answers, but one thing was clear: humanity couldn't afford to fail. As the tension built, strange phenomena began to occur. In cities across the globe, people started to report strange dreams, vivid visions of distant places, vast landscapes, and towering beings, sometimes familiar, sometimes terrifying. It was as if the fabric of reality itself was being torn, unraveling bit by bit. The officer couldn't ignore the possibility that this was connected to the message. Maybe the truth wasn't just something humanity could know. Maybe it was something they had to experience. And then, one fateful night, everything changed. The first sign was subtle. A strange hum, barely perceptible at first, began to fill the air. It was a sound no one could place low and resonant, almost like a deep vibration coming from the very ground itself. People stopped what they were doing, looking around, puzzled, their senses on high alert. The hum grew louder, and then, without warning, the skies above Earth lit up in a flash of light. It was a spectacle unlike anything anyone had ever seen. For a split second, the entire world seemed to glow with an unnatural energy. The light pulsed, spreading outward like a shockwave, sending ripples through the atmosphere. It was as if a veil had been lifted, revealing something hidden in the cosmos. The air felt charged, electric, and people began to panic. Something was happening. Something massive. And then, just as suddenly as it had appeared, the light vanished, leaving only a lingering sense of awe and terror in its wake. In the silence that followed, the officer's console beeped one single, sharp note. He turned toward the screen, his heart racing. The message that had haunted him for days was now clear. The unknown fleet had finally made their move. The fleet that had been observing Earth for so long now began to move. Slowly at first, then with incredible speed, they surged forward, their ships slicing through the atmosphere like arrows in flight. They weren't approaching Earth to negotiate or to make demands. No, they were preparing to engage. Whatever this was, this test, this truth, it was now at the point of no return. The officer's hands gripped the edge of his console. This was it. The moment they had all been dreading. The fate of humanity hung in the balance, and in the center of it all, there was only one question left to answer. Would humanity rise to meet the truth, or would they crumble under the weight of it? The answer was about to come, and nothing could stop it now. As the fleet surged toward Earth, the entire world held its breath. People gathered in streets, staring up at the sky, watching as the vast black ships grew closer, their dark silhouettes cutting through the atmosphere like harbingers of doom. The hum in the air was now deafening, reverberating in every corner of the globe. It was impossible to ignore. The strange energy that had filled the air was building, intensifying with each passing second, as though the entire planet was being drawn into the same gravitational pull, destined to meet its fate. In the command centers, military leaders and scientists worked furiously, analyzing the incoming ships. The officer, who had been monitoring the situation from the start, felt a cold sweat bead on his forehead. He had always believed that humanity could survive, that their resilience and ingenuity would be enough. But this was something entirely different. This wasn't just a battle for survival. This was something much bigger, something far more complicated. The ships weren't just arriving. They were attacking. The officer's thoughts raced, desperately trying to make sense of what was unfolding before him. The ships weren't just here to observe anymore. They were here to engage, to test humanity in the most dangerous way possible. But what could this test mean? If the mysterious fleet wasn't coming to destroy Earth outright, what was their true purpose? And why now? As the ships loomed overhead, something unexpected happened. Without warning, a massive rift tore open in the sky, sending a shockwave across the planet. The rift was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, glowing with an otherworldly energy that seemed to warp the very fabric of reality. It wasn't a simple tear in the atmosphere, but something far more intense, as though the boundary between Earth and another dimension had suddenly dissolved. From the rift, a new force emerged. It wasn't like the sleek ships of the mysterious fleet. These were far larger, their designs more ancient and imposing. They seemed to emerge from the rift with a sense of purpose, their presence overwhelming. It was as though they had been waiting for this moment, waiting for the exact instant when the world would be at its most vulnerable. The officer's heart skipped a beat. Who were these new arrivals? They were unlike anything Earth had encountered. Their ships were covered in strange symbols, their surfaces pulsing with an eerie light. They moved with a precision that seemed almost impossible, like they were orchestrating a grand design. It didn't take long for the humans to realize the true significance of this new development. The alien fleet, those ships that had once hovered in silence above Earth, were no longer the only threat. The arrival of these new, mysterious entities had escalated the situation in ways no one could have predicted. The officer's mind raced as he realized the unimaginable. The original fleet wasn't the true enemy at all. These new arrivals were something else entirely. They were ancient. They were powerful. And from the way they moved, it was clear that they had been watching humanity for far longer than anyone had guessed. They weren't here to negotiate. They weren't here to conquer. No, their intentions were darker. Far darker. The officer turned to his console, his fingers shaking as he tried to piece together what was happening. His eyes widened in shock as a transmission came through a message, this time from the new ships. But it wasn't in any language he recognized. This wasn't just a coded message. This was something deeper, something primal. The words began to appear on his screen, distorted and broken, but one phrase stood out clearly. "We have come for the trial." The officer's mind went numb. A trial? What did that even mean? For what purpose? Was Earth just a test subject for some galactic experiment? Was humanity being judged in ways they could never understand? The questions piled on top of each other, but there was no time to answer them. The new fleet was moving toward Earth with a purpose intent on making their presence felt in ways humanity could never have imagined. The first blast came without warning. A beam of pure energy shot from one of the massive ships, tearing through the atmosphere with devastating force. The ground shook beneath the officer's feet as he watched the screen, his breath catching in his throat. The blast hit a major city, obliterating it in an instant. There was no warning, no chance for defense. It was over before anyone could react. Panic spread like wildfire. Governments scrambled to respond, but the new fleet seemed to be everywhere at once. Cities around the world began to crumble under the onslaught, buildings collapsing, streets shaking as though the planet itself were being torn apart. The officer, now frantically trying to make sense of the situation, felt the crushing weight of responsibility. The truth, it seemed, was far worse than he could have imagined. As the destruction raged on, the officer turned his attention to the original alien fleet that had been hovering above Earth. To his shock, they began to move almost as if they were reacting to the devastation unfolding before them. Were they allies? Enemies? Or something else entirely? It was unclear, but their sudden movement was enough to send the officer's mind into overdrive. They didn't seem to be attacking, but they weren't helping either. They were caught in a standoff with the new fleet. A silent war was unfolding in the skies above, one that was about to spill over into every corner of the world. The officer's heart sank. This wasn't a simple fight for survival anymore. This wasn't even about Earth versus alien invaders. No, this was a battle for something far more important, a trial, perhaps for the very soul of humanity. The ancient forces that had arrived were testing them, pushing them to their limits, forcing them to confront something beyond their wildest understanding. And the worst part? No one knew if humanity would pass this trial. As the skies above Earth filled with the chaos of the two alien fleets, the officer sat in his command center, watching helplessly as cities fell, governments crumbled, and the world teetered on the brink of total destruction. The war for Earth had become a war for something much greater, something that would change the course of history forever. The trial was here, and humanity was caught in the middle. Would they rise, or would they fall? Would they find the strength to survive, or would they become another forgotten footnote in the galaxy's endless history? The truth was coming, and it was coming fast. But would humanity be ready when it arrived? The chaos above Earth had reached a fever pitch. The two alien fleets were locked in a deadly dance, their ships firing on each other in the void of space, streaks of energy lighting up the sky like lightning. Below, the world was a crumbling wasteland. Cities lay in ruins, their foundations shattered by the relentless barrage. Humanity was on its knees, but something within them refused to break. Despite the odds, despite the overwhelming forces arrayed against them, humanity fought back. The officer, still at his command center, watched the live feeds, his heart pounding in his chest. The new fleet had come with a singular purpose: to test humanity. But what was this trial? What was it they were truly testing for? Every part of him screamed that this wasn't just about the survival of Earth. It was about proving that humanity deserved to continue, to grow, to ascend beyond its current limitations. But what did that mean? What did they have to do to pass this trial? As the officer stared at the flickering images of devastation, a realization hit him like a ton of bricks. The destruction, the violence, it wasn't random. It was part of the test. They had been pushing humanity to its breaking point, forcing them to confront their deepest fears, to rise up from the ashes and fight back. And now, with the world on the verge of total collapse, the moment had come. Without warning, the officer received another transmission, this time from the original alien fleet. It was a simple message, but its meaning was profound. Prove your worth. That was it. No further explanation. No demands. Just the command to prove their worth. The officer's mind raced. What did that mean? How could they prove their worth in the face of annihilation? There was only one thing left to do. They had to unite. Humanity had always been divided by differences, by borders, by ideologies. But this was the final test. This was the moment when all those divisions had to fall away. The officer knew that if humanity didn't come together, they would fail. But if they could find a way to join forces, to stand united, they might just pass the trial. He sent a message across all channels, reaching out to every leader, every military commander, every citizen across the globe. His voice, calm and determined, echoed through every speaker. We stand together. No matter our differences, no matter the past, we fight for our future. This is humanity's trial. It is time to rise. The response was immediate. People who had never imagined working together now found themselves joining the cause, setting aside everything that had once divided them. Governments, once fractured and at odds, began to coordinate. People in the streets, desperate and afraid, picked up whatever they could: guns, tools, anything to fight back against the invaders. A unified human front emerged, born not out of desperation, but out of something deeper, a fierce will to survive, to prove their place in the universe. The officer watched, a sense of awe filling him as humanity, every corner of the world, every person fought together as one. The alien forces, watching from the sky, seemed to sense the shift. For the first time since the battle had begun, there was a flicker of hesitation from the dark ships that had been tearing Earth apart. It was as if they were waiting for something, waiting for humanity to show them that they had passed the test. And then, just as the tides seemed to turn, something unexpected happened. From the rift in the sky, the massive, ancient ships of the new fleet halted their assault. The officer's breath caught in his throat as he watched the immense ships drift silently in space, their pulsing lights dimming. Were they retreating? Were they leaving? Had humanity done enough to prove their worth? But then, just as quickly as the rift had opened, a new figure appeared, a figure that no one had expected. It was the leader of the original alien fleet. But this time, he wasn't alone. He was accompanied by a small, glowing sphere that hovered beside him, radiating a gentle yet powerful energy. As the figure addressed humanity, his voice, calm, resonant, and oddly familiar, echoed across every communication channel. You have done what we could not foresee. You have risen, not through power, but through unity, through determination. You have passed the trial, but not in the way we expected. You have shown us something that even we, in all our wisdom, could not comprehend." The officer's eyes widened in disbelief. The trial wasn't about survival, nor was it about winning a battle. It was about the resilience of the human spirit. The aliens had been observing humanity, waiting to see if they would rise above their weaknesses, if they could transcend their history of division and conflict. And humanity had done it, not by defeating their enemies with force, but by uniting in the face of destruction. "We have watched you," the alien leader continued, "and we have learned. The truth you sought is not something we can give you. It is something you must find for yourselves. But you have earned your place in the galaxy." The officer felt a mix of disbelief and relief wash over him. It wasn't over, not yet. But humanity had passed the ultimate test. They had proven their worth, not through weapons or violence, but through something far more powerful. They had shown the universe that they could overcome their flaws, their differences, and stand as one. As the alien leader's ship moved away, the rift began to close, slowly at first, then faster until it vanished completely, leaving only the remnants of the battle in its wake. The skies above Earth were calm once again. The fighting stopped. The human forces, still battered and broken, stood together, looking up at the empty sky. But just as the officer thought the world had finally found peace, something new appeared in the sky, a flash of light, sharp and sudden, like a star being born. And from that light, a new presence emerged. It was unlike anything humanity had ever seen, vast, transcendent, and filled with a power that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality. The final twist. A new force had arrived, one far older, far more powerful than anything the officer or humanity could understand. And it was looking down on them, not as invaders or judges, but as something. The officer stood there, staring at the new presence in the sky, his mind racing. The battle had subsided, the immediate danger past, but what now? The fleet of the mysterious alien ships had vanished, leaving nothing but an eerie calm, broken only by the strange presence of something new, something beyond his comprehension. For a moment, the world felt still, as if the entire planet were holding its breath. The light that had appeared in the sky grew brighter, almost overwhelming in its intensity. It wasn't the harsh, destructive force of the previous battles. No, this was something far different. It was as if the light itself carried a message, something ancient, something timeless, that humanity wasn't yet ready to understand. And yet, in that moment, the officer felt a deep sense of calm wash over him, as if the chaos of the past few days had suddenly ceased to matter. The officer turned to the team beside him. Faces filled with both awe and fear stared back at him, but there was no panic, no frenzy. They were all standing still, waiting for something they couldn't fully comprehend. The world had been tested, but the answer, whatever it was, had yet to come. As the light in the sky began to take shape, the officer's thoughts drifted back to the earlier transmissions. The cryptic message that had triggered this chain of events, "Are you ready for the truth?" It had been simple, yet profound, and everything that had followed was now starting to make sense. Humanity had been tested, not by the alien fleets, but by something deeper, by the very fabric of the universe itself. He wasn't sure why, but he felt a strange connection to whatever was unfolding above them. It wasn't fear, but an overwhelming sense of purpose. The trial was not just about survival. It was about understanding, about reaching a point where humanity could transcend its past mistakes and rise to a higher plane. This, whatever this was the moment of truth. Suddenly, a voice broke through the silence, clear and direct, as though coming from the very air around them. Humanity has passed the trial, not because of your weapons or your will to fight, but because you have shown that you are capable of something greater, the voice said, resonating with an ancient, knowing tone. The officer's breath caught in his chest. This wasn't just a message for him, it was for everyone. For all of humanity. You have learned the strength of unity, the power of rising together in the face of adversity. You have transcended your divisions. And for this, we honor you, the voice continued. But this is not the end. This is only the beginning of a new chapter in your existence. The officer, along with the rest of the world, listened in stunned silence as the voice spoke of a future that humanity had never imagined. A future where they would no longer be confined by their own limitations, where they would step out into the galaxy, no longer as fragmented nations or fractured societies, but as a united species ready to face whatever challenges lay ahead. The light in the sky pulsed, and suddenly the officer's console began to flash with information data pouring in at a rate he couldn't keep up with. He glanced at the screen, trying to make sense of the words, but it was too much. The symbols were unlike anything he had ever seen, the language foreign, but the meaning was clear. You have been chosen, the voice said. Not because of your strength, but because of your potential. The path forward is not an easy one, but it is the only one that will lead you to the stars. The officer's heart pounded in his chest. Chosen? For what? The weight of the moment was overwhelming. They were not just survivors anymore. They were about to embark on something far greater, something that would take them beyond their home world. As the light in the sky began to fade, the officer stood in awe, unable to move. Around him, the world seemed to hold its breath, waiting for the next chapter to unfold. But the voice had already spoken, and there was no turning back. Humanity had passed the test, but it was not yet ready for what lay ahead. Months passed, and the world slowly began to rebuild. The cities that had been destroyed by the alien fleets were now nothing more than craters, reminders of what had been lost. But there was something different in the air now. People didn't just mourn the past, they looked forward, their eyes fixed on the horizon, where new opportunities awaited. The nations of the world, once fractured by borders and ideologies, had begun to work together in ways that seemed impossible before the trial. Governments had come together, their differences set aside in favor of a greater shared purpose. The human race was no longer divided. It had become a singular force, united by the understanding that they had been given a rare and precious gift, the chance to prove themselves, to become something greater than they had ever dreamed. The officer, now more of a symbol than a military leader, was one of the many voices urging humanity forward. His role had changed. No longer was he merely a soldier, but a guide for a species on the brink of something unprecedented. The war had ended, but a new kind of battle had begun. This was the fight for humanity's future, for its place in the universe. The alien fleets, once hostile and cold, had now disappeared from Earth's orbit, leaving behind only the faintest traces of their presence. The fleet that had tested humanity, the one that had come to judge, was now gone, leaving nothing but the echoes of their final message. But the true meaning of that message was something humanity had yet to fully understand. The officer's thoughts drifted back to that moment, the moment when the light in the sky had first appeared, the moment when everything had changed. That light had not been an enemy or a force of destruction. It had been something else, something far older, far more powerful than anything humanity could have imagined. And in its wake, humanity had been left with a choice. Would they continue to look inward, to fight amongst themselves, to be consumed by their past mistakes? Or would they take the next step united, fearless, and ready to reach for the stars? In the days that followed, the officer met with leaders from across the globe, as well as the brightest minds in science, philosophy, and technology. Together, they began to chart a course for the future, one that would carry humanity beyond Earth to explore the far reaches of the universe. They had passed the test, but the journey was far from over. The officer knew that the universe was vast and full of mysteries that humanity was only beginning to understand. There would be dangers ahead, but there would also be opportunities. Humanity was no longer just a species struggling to survive on a single planet. They were now a part of something much larger, a galactic community that stretched across the stars. But there was still much to learn. There were still many questions that remained unanswered. The truth, the final piece of the puzzle, had not been revealed. But humanity had proven that it was capable of something extraordinary, that it could rise above its flaws, its past, and its limitations. The officer stood on the balcony of the rebuilt command center, looking out over the world that had changed beyond recognition. The cities, once shattered and broken, were now filled with life again. The scars of the past remained, but so did the promise of a new future. The officer's gaze turned upward toward the stars. There, in the distance, he saw a glimmer of something new. A distant light, faint but steady, shining like a beacon in the vast darkness. Humanity had passed the test. The trial had been hard, but it was only the beginning. The future was waiting. And for the first time in history, humanity was ready to meet it head-on.